Hold on the computer. Hello, everyone, and welcome. Today we've got Kerry Sutcliffe. Is that how I pronounce it?
It
Who
is, yeah.
is a hypnobirthing practitioner. So I really wanted to get someone to come and tell us about what hypnobirthing is, which mums will benefit from it. I know when I learnt about hypnobirthing was after I had my babies, but I definitely had used some of the tools that hypnobirthing modality uses, and so I think it's a really helpful approach to having an empowered birth. So I'm going to hand over to Kerry. She's going to tell us what hypnobirthing is, which mums would benefit, and also her story about how she became passionate about hypnobirthing. So thanks for joining us, Kerry.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me. Well, just to tell you my story first as to why I now teach this and why I do feel so passionately about it. It all started with the births of my three children. So back in the UK, we were pregnant with our first child, and I was around 30 or so weeks pregnant. And at that point, I was just heading towards birth with this plan to just wing it, turn up on the day, do what I was told, and that birth was going to be this really painful event that I just had to get through because we wanted to start a family.
It's such a common story in our community and in our mums, huh?
It really is. And all I had to go off was, the movies, some of the stories from my friends. And like I say, I wasn't going towards birth feeling very excited at all. I was excited to be pregnant and I was excited about the idea of having a baby, but the birth itself was scaring me. And I stumbled across a poster one day at work that said, "Would you like a relaxing and enjoyable birth?" So that grabbed my attention because I thought, yes, I do. How on earth is that even possible? And I went along to an information session. I found out about hypnobirthing, and my job at the time was working in counseling and psychology, working with people predominantly with anxiety and depression. And the ideas and the philosophy behind hypnobirthing, I was really attracted to it. So I went away, I did a course, and then ultimately I went on to have three really great birthing experiences. So I remember on the day that our first baby was born, she was born, early afternoon, and I remember saying I would do that again today. And this wasn't the story that friends around me giving babies were talking about. And it wasn't that I was any better at giving birth than them, it's just that I'd prepared in a different way. So we had three children, and with each of them, different circumstances, every birth is unique, but I came out of each of them going, that's fantastic, I'm made to do this, giving birth is brilliant, and I loved it. So when we moved here to Australia, our third child was born here in Sydney. When we moved here, I thought, actually, I really need to do something to tell mums and birth partners more about what this is all about, because I'm coming out of birth feeling fantastic. It's really setting me up well for parenthood. I need to let other women know that this is possible. So I researched the hypnobirthing programs available here in Australia, and I came across Hypnobirthing Australia, and I really connected with it. So for anybody who doesn't know what hypnobirthing is, in a nutshell, it's really about preparing for birth in a really positive way. It's about understanding yourself, the birthing process, and what you can do to prepare for arguably the most important day of your life. So every other significant life event we have, we put things in place to plan, to prepare so that event can go as smoothly as possible. And it's the same with birth. Birth isn't the time to start winging it and turning up on the day. Once you're in labor, it's too late at that point to kind of go, what can I do right now to get through this? So the way that our courses are designed is we cover 4 different units. And the first unit actually starts with creating and maintaining a positive mindset. Because although lots of people start to worry about the physical act of giving birth, how am I going to cope with the pain? How is this baby going to get out? It all starts up here. And the reason why it's important to start with mindset is because when we're in a fearful mental state, when we're scared, when we're anxious, physically then our body responds by getting tense. And we know this if we're feeling fearful in other aspects of our life. We tense up, we grit our jaw, we close down, we clam our fists, etc. But that's not the goal with birth. The goal with birth is to open up, to let
We
go.
want to be relaxed and let the normal physiological hormones process. Well, one of the other expert interviews was talking about that preparation for an empowered birth, and that if we're not feeling safe, then our nervous system is impacted, and that can shut down labor as well. That those stress hormones can come up, and so that blocks that physiological process. That you're talking about the same thing, yeah?
Yeah, it really does. Absolutely. Yeah. You know, fear impacts on the way that the uterus is functioning during labor and birth. So, absolutely, it can create what we call this fear, tension, pain cycle.
Hmm.
So, when a woman's feeling fearful, her body gets tense, it starts to close up, tighten, and then it leads to an increased amount of pain. And then that pain starts to tell mum that something's wrong, because we normally associate pain with being something's wrong. You know, we've twisted an ankle, we've pulled a muscle. Pain is normally telling us that something's wrong, you need to get it checked out. Whereas the sensations that you're feeling during labor and birth, this is your body working to bring your baby to you. So what we want to do is replace the fear with a confident mindset. And when we have
So
a
it's still
confident,
going to hurt, but we don't need to be as scared of it, or ways to reduce the impact of fear making the pain worse or getting the messages confused.
yeah, well, we're still going to feel it. You know, this is not about a case of we're just all of a sudden going to realize there's a baby there and we didn't know it was happening. We're going to know this is happening. And people talk about pain-free births. I
Yes,
think
I've
there's
heard these stories, but
absolutely. And I think there's a lot of things we need to undo mentally for that to occur. But definitely the pain doesn't have to be off the scale. So if somebody said to me, you know, how would you rate the pain? And people often talk of, you know, 0 to 10 when we talk about pain. I'd say 6, 7 at times. You know, it wasn't off the scale, which I thought it was going to be before I ever did any of this. I thought surely labor and birth is going to be 33 out of 10. And it wasn't. It was manageable. It was intense. I had to pay attention to what was going on. I had to focus and use all my hypnobirthing techniques, but it wasn't off the scale. So instead of fear, tension, pain, we get into a confident mindset, a relaxed physical state, and that allows everything to keep flowing and moving on. So we start up here with hypnobirthing. We start with the mindset and changing the way we think, because we can have decades worth of negative stories, information,
oh,
movies
absolutely,
that are
horror
in.
stories, and yeah, the media, you know, the way they portray childbirth, and like, yeah, all of the story and the movies, like you say, it's like, and that is one of the big instigators of fear. And we have fear of childbirth at an all-time high in Australia, so we know this is real.
Yeah, we do. We really, really do. And I often say to my clients as well, imagine if there was no fear attached to birth. Imagine if all you'd ever heard was really positive, encouraging, inspiring, motivation, and empowering birth stories. You'd be heading towards birth feeling very, very differently,
So
and
true.
your body would respond differently.
Yeah.
So we look at the mindset. Then we go through what we call the toolkit, the techniques, the things that you can do to manage labor and birth. Things that are evidence-based. You know, there's theories behind why and how these things work. So we will look at things like our breathing techniques, acupressure points, incorporating all our different senses. So what we can smell, how we're being touched, and what we can see, visualizations. And there's evidence behind why and how all of these things work. So it's not just a case of saying, well, yes, let's put some nice smells on burning and have some nice music playing. They're all about helping mum to get into that relaxed physical state so that she can work with the sensations of her body bringing her baby to her. So there's a lot of things you can do to get through labor and birth. Then we talk about choices and options for birth, because many women don't realize that when it comes to birth, every decision is yours to make. You have the right to decide what feels right for you, your body, your birth, your baby, your circumstances, and your preferences, and what you want to do. So hypnobirthing is not about creating a certain type of birth. It doesn't have to be in the water with no drugs, not making a noise. It's about taking your circumstances, your preferences, how you want to welcome your baby into the world, but knowing that you can ask for the information, so that there's pros and cons of doing different things. And being able to weigh those up so you can make a good informed decision about what feels right for you, so that you can come out of birth reflecting on it, knowing that you made the best decisions with the circumstances you had to have the best possible birth for however your birth unfolds. Because birth is different and unique, and women have lots of different types of births. But hypnobirthing is very much about having a positive birth, whatever your birth looks like, because positive means different things to different women as well.
Do you know Catherine Bell of the Birth Map, the birth cartographer, Catherine Bell?
Yes, I do. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know her personally, but yeah,
so we did an interview with her as well, and so it's all about that, having informed choices made previously for whatever different scenarios. So they're similar to what you're talking about, so that whatever actually happens, you've thought about that before, or you've talked about that with your care provider, and so they know, so that even if something happens that was not expected or an intervention needs to come in, that you've already had that informed decision made around it. And so you're not trying to make a decision in a panic mode, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. You know, hypnobirthing parents are very, very good at adapting when we need to adapt,
Yeah.
because circumstances sometimes come along, whether it's during pregnancy or during the birth itself, and we might need to adapt relatively quickly to those.
Absolutely. There's
And
lots of
we're really, really good at doing that. And it is, you know, I often talk about how the power of a birth plan isn't necessarily in the plan itself. It's about becoming informed about all your different options and choices. So that should, you know, you might think that this is your plan for birth, and you might have a birth that is very much aligned with how you want it to be. Or sometimes with birth is a fluid, ever-changing event that we need to be flexible with. And if your birth takes this kind of a path, hypnobirthing parents are very, very good at managing that and working with those circumstances.
So do you actually, don't go to the birth with them, so you're not a doula, you just do the course with them beforehand?
Yeah, that's
and
right.
at what stage would mum and dad come in to do the course?
They could come, most clients tend to come after the 20-week mark. They've kind of got past that halfway point, and then birth starts to become more prominent in their mindset. So they tend to come after 20 weeks, up to any time. I've worked with people up to 38 weeks, and they'll always get something out of the course. What you need to be mindful of, though, is that if time is on your side, I would recommend don't put it off just for the sake of putting it off. If you can, come a bit sooner, because you want to give yourself time to get familiar with the techniques, to allow that conditioning to take place, to, you know, change those negative belief systems that you might have, and put in that more confident mindset. And that can take some time to overcome, you know, the history of things that we've seen and heard and so on.
Especially if you'd had like maybe a previous traumatic experience, or a family member had that, or your friends had, so you had an increased fear potentially than just an unprepared feeling. You'd want to get in earlier. Ideally.
Exactly. Yeah, and the couple of the clients who I have seen earlier than 20 weeks are those where they've had the previous traumatic experience and they're looking for a different birth this time, and they know that they've got a lot of stuff to work against and overcome and process and so on, or they've got a history of very ingrained anxiety issues, and they're worried that anxiety is going to come up during pregnancy and birth too. So yeah, really any time, and also because we also want you to enjoy these techniques during the pregnancy. They're a great way of, when you're doing your hypnobirthing homework and practicing your techniques, they're a great way to slow things down, enjoy the journey, really get familiar with them. It's great for mum and birth partner to do them together. Life can be busy these days, and it's a great opportunity just to stop and say, let's connect with baby, take some time out and get really well prepared, so that when the day of birth comes along, we're feeling really ready to do this.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I talk a lot in the program about, stress reduction tools for every stage as well. And that's like I imagine the tools that you're talking about, you'll be able to apply outside of that as well, like, as to support for the nervous system and to get the mind in the right, preparation stages. You can use them in pregnancy, and then obviously in fourth trimester and moving through. So who would you recommend that all mums do something like this, or first time mums, or mums that have got fear or feeling unprepared?
I mean, I'm biased. I would say every woman, regardless of her circumstances, will gain so much from doing this. But the typical clients that we get is obviously the first time mums, because they've not done this before, and maybe a lot of what they've heard is leading them very fearful. So we get first time parents because they just don't know what to expect, because that's the other element of the course as well, is that we do the childbirth education, because it's amazing how many women go through pregnancy and birth, but I haven't actually understood the process and what's happening, the hormones that are assisting you to do this. And that's really empowering, because it's very difficult to trust a process if you don't understand how it works. So that childbirth education is really important too. So certainly first time parents, We get a lot of people coming to do it because they're feeling very fearful and frightened about birth. And that's not always just the mum, that can be the birth partner too, because we feed off their energy during birth too. Or second time or third time parents, however many children they might have, who are looking for a different experience to previous birth and they want to prepare in a different way. Or also a lot of people who go, I really believe that birth is this normal, natural, physiological event, but I'd like the tools. I want to know, how can I make the most of it? So it really does apply to anyone and everyone, really.
Yeah, awesome. So if mums wanted to learn more, I'll obviously put your contact details into the notes, but is there like a, you know, a special, like a particular website? Would they just Google hypnobirthers in my area? And the other thing is, because at the moment, obviously when we're recording this, we're in the middle of COVID. So is there online versions of this that mums and dads can do?
Yep, there is. So like I say, I work with the Hypnobirthing Australia program. So if you go to the Hypnobirthing Australia website, you can put in your location, your suburb or your postcode, and it will throw up the practitioners who are closest to you, so that when the COVID situation ends and you want to see somebody face to face, you can do that.
Yep.
What our practitioners are also doing as well is that we're delivering the courses online like this. So there's two options with that. They can either do what we call the Positive Birth program, which is the one that we would ordinarily do face to face, but we're doing through Zoom. So the slides go up, you still see the birth videos of the parents who've done our course and the births that they've had. You can still practice the techniques and we can see you and we can give feedback and we can interact and we can do all that. Or there's also what's called the Hypnobubs program. So this is one which is pre-recorded by our director, Melissa Spilstead, and the content you work through at your own pace. It's self-directed, there's worksheets there. And then what you can do once you've done the pre-recorded version, if you want to, is you can add on a one-to-one session with a practitioner. If you've got questions, you want to clarify some things, you just want to go through some of the stuff from the course. So there's a couple of different online options that you can do depending on preference.
Yeah, sounds amazing. Thank you so much. That's really answered all of the questions. And I'm sure if mums or dads or any of the other practitioners that are doing the course want to find out more information, they can get in touch with you or look up that website there. Is there anything else you wanted to add before we finished up?
Like I say, just look at it. Look at an option. I think sometimes the name hypnobirthing itself can put people off a little bit.
People think it's a bit woo-woo, but it's not. It's evidence-based. It's, you know, all about natural physiological birth and tools we can use to allow that to happen, right? And alleviating fear.
Exactly. You know, it's evidence-based. So many parents use this and they come out of the other side. And when I get those emails and phone calls and text messages from parents saying, baby's here and it was great, you know, that's what we all do it for. So look into it. You know, if you're unsure, reach out, contact us on social media. You know, I'm the Hypnobirthing Mum. I'll answer questions on Instagram, Facebook, email me. You know, I can send information if people want more. Look into it, you know, because if you've not looked into it, it's not an option available to you.
Yeah, and awesome. And I do encourage mums, absolutely, and dads to shop around until they find the right person that suits them as well. So it is about having that practitioner, whichever course you're doing, whether it's a breastfeeding course, hypnobirth, a different other calm birth course or something, that you trust the person delivering the information. It's the same as having that your primary healthcare provider, your midwife, your doula or your OB, that you actually trust them. And that's, you know, one of the things that really leads to having that empowered experience. So yeah,
it is. You want that rapport with them.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Fabulous. All right. Thank you so much. And if anyone needs to, they can get in touch with you via all of the links that I'll put in there. Okay. Thanks, Kerry.
Thank you, Emma.